Welcome to the Wise Fiduciary Podcast. I am Isaac Wood, one of your hosts from Fiduciary Wise. Whether you're a thought leader, service provider, CEO, or decision maker, this podcast is for you. We break down best practices, the services and solutions available to you, discuss the latest topics, and shake up the industry norms. Please join us as we explore, challenge, and navigate the future of fiduciary responsibility, and we do it together. This season, we are doing something a little different, something bolder, something necessary, because let's face it, the 401k world isn't just about safe harbor notices, 5500s, and fund lineups anymore. Nope. It's about lawsuits, legislation, ethics, conflicts. In this season, we are putting those controversies under the spotlight just for you. We're not here to push an agenda, or tell you which side to be on. We just want to explore both sides of the argument. This is the Fiduciary Frontline. This is the great 401k debate. This is Marta Hurst, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my gosh, you're extra enthusiastic today. I am Marta Hurst. I am a partner here at Fiduciary Wise, and I hope that I am as excited as Isaac to talk about today's topic.
You'll get there.
Which is compensation paid from self-directed brokerage accounts. So should it be allowed or required? And is it different by service provider? So here's kind of the basics. Many plans offer self-directed brokerage as an option to use to select investments outside of the core lineup, which can include individual stocks, ETFs. I don't know. Anyway, so the question of today is, should advisors or any service provider receive compensation on those assets? Now, one thing I want to point out as we start discussing this is not all record keepers have the same capabilities when it comes to how they are connected to the retirement account and if they facilitate service provider payments. So we're just assuming that the options are available. So certainly these could be different by record keeper, but what we really want to talk about is, should it be happening at all? So I am pro advisors taking compensation from self-directed brokerage, which leaves for Isaac.
Leaves me with the winning side of the argument.
Winner, loser.
So I'm going to start because I'm pro. And Isaac and I actually talked about this a couple of days ago, and I said, hey, do you think we can make a whole podcast on this? I don't know if we can. And then we started arguing about which side was right. So I was like, oh, apparently we can. Maybe that's just what we do now. We just argue about everything. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we fight all the time. That's the point.
Anyway, I think, and I also want to say different service providers might be doing different things for self-directed brokerage. So I think we are primarily going to focus on the advisor side, also because advisors seem to have more strict rules about that kind of thing as well. But I believe that if advisors are providing services to the entire plan, they're providing education, they are providing support, then they should have the ability to be paid off of all of plan assets, not just those outside of the self-directed brokerage.
Why?
Really? That's what you're going with?
I don't know.
Because they're providing the service for the entire plan. So why, if somebody puts a bunch of money in self-directed brokerage, why wouldn't they receive compensation for that? They are still, and I think especially now where advisors are typically providing less investment advice and more general education about retirement plans. They are having group meetings about how much to save. They're having one-on-one meetings about, hey, should I do Roth or pre-tax? Why would where the investments go dictate if they get paid on that or not?
Well, because those investments are going to outside of the plan, and they're going oftentimes to a brokerage account that offers all kinds of different options out there that usually are not being addressed in those educational meetings that they are having conversations with plan participants about. And also, like, another big reason for why advisors shouldn't get paid on assets outside of the plan and brokerage accounts is really less of a shouldn't and is more of a can't. And that many of the broker dealers out there just simply won't allow it. And so I think we have to think about, why is that? Why is it that they aren't allowed to get paid on those assets? And it's part of the reason there is that they lose not everyone, but a lot of the service providers and plan lose eyesight to those dollars and what is going on, because those dollars leave the plan and go to a brokerage account. And so from a risk management compliance perspective, usually at broker dealers, the people that say no to things are the compliance folks. And so from a compliance perspective, it's just hard to justify what's happening with those dollars the way that you need to be able to do in order to get paid on them.
What if they do, though? What if it is an advisor that can provide investment advice and provides information or recommendations about where a participant should invest those?
So now you're talking about like being a fee-based advisor, which we are definitely seeing a growth in the 401k space of more advisors providing their services on a fee-based perspective rather than going through a broker dealer in a commission structure, right? And so now it's just, it's are you earning the dollar? Which I think is the question that needs to be asked about every dollar that's paid out of a 401k plan, right? Are you earning the dollar that you're charging and the fee that is being assessed? And if you're telling me that you're going to go in and have conversations with these advisors and talk through all the different individual stocks and ETFs and the different options that are available out in the brokerage window, if you're going to be able to not only tell me that you're doing that, but also document that you are doing said conversations, then maybe I'd be open to having a conversation about you getting paid.
Cannot roll my eyes any louder.
But I think many of the scenarios, though, are advisors getting paid on all the assets in the plan, those that are going out in the brokerage account window, and they just don't have eyesight to them, and they're not really providing any sort of education around those assets and those dollars at all.
This kind of your comment about that makes me wonder, as we see investments grow in the retirement plan space, like the new executive order about oh my gosh,
alternative investment.
What am I trying to say? And like alternative investments, annuities. Like, are these advisors going to have conversations with every person about every single one of those and how they work? I don't know.
I think they need to. That's the challenge, though, right? Like, so, and we talked about what did we talk about recently? I
don't know.
The a lot of stuff. Environmental, social, and ESG.
Oh yeah. ESG.
I couldn't get to that. There's just so many different acronyms out there. I couldn't get to the right one. We talked about ESG funds earlier on in this season as well, and I think it's the same sort of conversation, right? Of you got ESG funds, you got annuities, you got income products, you've got, in some cases there's life insurance involved. You got all kinds of different types of investments now that are making their way under the 401k umbrella. And this is the challenge as a financial advisor, is are you able to give proper education to these individuals? And that's why I think you're seeing broker dealers out there who have this compliance realm to them, really starting to pull back what it is that their advisors are allowed to talk about and get paid on, because that becomes a challenge. And so I think it definitely applies in this space of, are you aware of what's available out there in a capacity that you can provide education on that front enough to the point where you're adding value that earns yourself compensation?
Okay. I can kind of get on board with that logic. Here is my other challenge, or my why I think advisors should be paid on self-directed brokerage assets, because this reminds me a little bit of the revenue sharing arrangements. Like, if you are in some sort of plan where you have high revenue funds that are essentially paying the record keeping costs of the plan, and I am the business owner and I figure out, hey, I can get into this index fund for super cheap, and then all the rest of the employees, or like however it shakes out, are left paying those record keeping costs. That reminds me a little bit of this situation. Like if you go into a brokerage account and you're not paying any advisor compensation, you're essentially getting a discount from the plan. Everybody is not equally equal on costs. You're taking on additional risk, and you do it for less expense. That seems kind of appealing, frankly. And I don't know that we want to entice people to move to self-directed brokerage.
Yeah, but the appealing part is the fee part, but the extra risk part is not necessarily appealing.
Right. Well, but people don't think of it that way. They're like, oh yeah, I can do this. I'll do it all day long. Which then gets to,
That's
if I'm a business owner and I have the bulk of the plan balance, and I think you actually made the point when I brought this up yesterday that no one else is subsidizing the cost of that, right? Like it's not like typically like the advisor is unless they're charging like a flat fee.
Yeah, the difference between those two, because I'm with you. You want to pay attention to the decisions that are made in the plan on whether or not how it affects everybody in the plan, right? But the decision for a large account balance to go out of a brokerage account window, they're lowering the cost of the advisor fee. The person who loses that, it's not added to the other participants, just the advisor gets paid less, that amount that went out the window. And so,
which goes to maybe some of these other service providers, because we did talk when we were talking about this episode about service providers who do get paid on self-directed brokerage. So often the record keeper gets paid, often Fiduciary Wise gets paid, because we monitor and hopefully, depending on the record keeper, put some parameters around what can be utilized in the self-directed brokerage account. 338 investment fiduciaries typically do not, or they should not, because they have nothing to do with the self-directed brokerage.
And so what you're seeing is like
assets.
Those dollars leaving the platform and going to the self-directed brokerage account. Do your services still apply? So from a record keeper perspective, they're still keeping the records of those dollars, and know that they're there and are able to communicate their ups and downs and ebbs and flows. You could argue that TPAs are still involved in their record keeping, not record keepers.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, 338's for sure not, because they're tasked with managing and monitoring that core lineup that is very much in the plan. So they have nothing to do with random stocks out in the brokerage account window. And then that's where I think from an advisor perspective, then, so again, as a named fiduciary, you're over the entire plan. You don't get to tap out of fiduciary duties when it goes out to the brokerage window. So then you're left in with that advisor, which is often the only one that we ever even talk about and consider whether or not they should get paid on it, right? And so I think then you apply the same standard, right? Has your job changed on those dollars? And if it hasn't, then I would have to then cross the aisle, Marta, and join you on your side of the desk. And if your job has not changed at all on those dollars,
sounds like I won.
Then I think you've got a good argument, assuming that you can be paid on those. And so that means the technology has to be there from a platform perspective, and also your broker dealer has to allow it from a compliance perspective.
Right.
And if your job doesn't change, then I think if you're able to show that the value that you're bringing earns the compensation, then have at it. I don't know that that's always the case.
Okay, that's fair. So I think in practice, whatever is decided, to kind of keep these things in mind, ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, requires that fees be reasonable, disclosed, and tied to services rendered. So to Isaac's point, if you are not providing education or information on those self-directed brokerage dollars, then you should not be paid for them. Advisors have to clearly document those services provided to justify the compensation. Of course, always avoid any hidden fees or indirect fee arrangements. And then if service providers are compensated on those self-directed brokerage assets, they must be clear, valuable, fiduciary compliant services, and the compensation fully disclosed and reasonable. So otherwise you could create issues for the plan. So I know we have a plan that we just talked about internally yesterday. The advisor wants to take compensation on self-directed brokerage. And so we want to know, what does your service agreement look like, so that if the DOL were ever to come in, that we can justify that compensation is reasonable for the services that are being provided. So I guess I find it, we don't ever seem to get kind of to a totally yes or no, or and to say, it seems like a lot of these answers are, it depends.
There's a good, so it depends is a very wise answer to very many questions.
Well, you can say that about most anything. It depends. Of course it depends.
Of course it depends. Of course it depends.
Yes, I suppose you're right. Of course it depends.
I think there's nuance to life that is wise to recognize. But I think a good best practice for especially advisors, but really any service provider in the space, is to know if a brokerage window is going to be offered to participants, that you are aware of the limitations on what is allowed to be invested in under the 401k umbrella. And so some platforms, some technology allows you to just make those stipulations as you set it up. Some record keeping platforms allow you to do that, but not all of them do. And so to know and to be aware of that, if you or your client, the plan sponsor, has self-directed brokerage available to employees and no one is paying attention to what they're investing in, that could create problems. So to bring in sort of a fiduciary expert that would be able to maybe bring some oversight over there might be something that would be worth considering. But just make sure that you have the appropriate checks and balances set up if you're going to offer it to begin with. And you know what, if you're doing work to make sure checks and balances are taken care of, you can add that bullet point to the values that you're adding to that part, and you start to build an argument for why you should get paid on it.
I like it.
Oh, I'm hosting this thing, aren't I? All right. Well,
take it away.
Thank you, Marta, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in to the Wise Fiduciary Podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts and answer your questions. So drop us a comment, send us a message, or schedule a meeting with us at fiduciarywise.com/scheduling. Don't forget to join us next time for more insights and discussions and arguments and battles and debates. See you in the next episode. Ta-ta for now.